Beatbreak 87 FM and Reach One Network proudly presents Love and Poetry. Good Sunday evening. I am Sean Garvey, the architect. Sha'ria Thomas is taking the evening off. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are new to Love and Poetry podcast for the very first time, of course, like the announcer said earlier in the podcast, this is the show in which we talk about all things considered love, sex, relationship, as well as poetry. And speaking of poetry, I am happy to announce I recently released my new spoken word project. It is called A Poet Found Dead by yours truly, and I have some features on there. You're
Mm.
definitely going to love it. It is on WordPress for all of my WordPress users out there. You can go to SeanGarveyOnline.wordpress.com to check out my material. And once again, it is SeanGarveyOnline.wordpress.com. I will be able to reiterate that information to you at the end of the podcast, just in case you didn't get it. On today's show, we're going to be talking about something very important that is still happening all around the country and in our community. Just a recap, me and Sha'ria had a chance to speak to her parents about the marriage life. In case you did not know, Sharia's parents have been married for more than 50 years. I believe it was like
Wow.
58 years or something like that, but they've been married more than 50 years. And they had an opportunity to come on the podcast to talk about their marital journey, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bad, and the ugly, and how they maintain to stay married all these years. But we decided to switch it up today on Love and Poetry by talking about the other side to marriage. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about this type of thing. In reality, it does happen. We hear it a lot, especially in the social media world that we are in. We hear it all the time about celebrities that break up as well as get divorced. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the D word, divorce. What
Mm-hmm.
happens after divorce? Life after divorce and the bounce back. And here to talk about it, I have a good friend of mine that I've known for years. I had an opportunity to interview her in a different arena my first few years into radio broadcasting. She is an incredible singer, songwriter, and I believe she is currently working in education, if I'm not mistaken. But she is on here to talk about life after marriage. She was once married and got a divorce after that. So she's going to talk about the things that happened during the marriage, not everything, but what led up to the divorce and how she is coping with it after the marriage. I am so honored to have the one and only Dominique
Oh.
on Love and Poetry Podcast. Good evening, Dominique.
Hi, Sean. Good evening. It's so good to see you. So good to reconnect.
Absolutely, after all these
I
years.
know after, all these years and coming back full circle, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Everything happens full circle. Atlanta is such a small city. You never
Yes,
know who you will reunite or come in paths with.
that's true. So
Yeah,
true.
yeah, it's good to see you. Like I mentioned, in the world of social media, pop culture, and entertainment, we hear these stories all the time about relationship breakups and marital breakups.
Yeah.
I said this in the first episode of Love and Poetry with my sister Sha'ria Thomas about what I've been dealing with last year in 2020, pre and post COVID. In the middle of COVID-19, I was in a situation where I just came out of a romantic relationship with someone who is still my friend to this very day. And it hit hard to me because the romantic relationship lasted for 2 years. It was a committed romantic relationship that I had with someone. And when she broke things off with me in July, in the middle of COVID-19, it put me in a dark place as an
Hmm.
individual where I too experienced mental health. But for you, things fell apart, things ended for you in 2019. You
Yes.
got a divorce, and from my understanding, fast forward into the beginning part of 2021, your divorce has been officially finalized.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it has been. So just a little bit backstory. Yeah, I filed for divorce in 2019, December 2019. I remember the date, December 17th,
Mm-hmm.
2019. And just leading up to filing for divorce, a lot of emotions, a lot of things went into it, but it was kind of just like one ordeal that just finally was like, okay, that's it, this is enough, you know. But like you said, fast forwarding uh, now, um, if I had to do it over again, I think I would have, contemplated things a little bit more. Um, so I will say that. So
Yeah. Take us to the very beginning of the marriage. How did everything go between you and your now ex-husband? Talk to us about the beginning stages of the marriage.
the beginning, I got married really young. I got married at 25. And getting married that young, I feel like you're still finding out who you are. Um, I believe you're still finding your place. And so getting married at a young age really, really I feel like I didn't know who I was, and neither did my ex-husband. And so we were just kind of growing, kind of together. We were actually high school sweethearts. And so we came out of high school. What happened was we dated our senior year in high school. And then we dated through like our freshman year, middle freshman year of college. And then we broke it off. We broke up and we went our separate ways. And then in 2007, when I graduated, I came back home to Atlanta because I went to school in Missouri, and we reconnected via Facebook, believe it or not. So, everything was good. And so we started to date and we just connected, and we got married. We got married and we had a baby soon after. And so, you know, in the beginning, it was fun. It was young love, So when you get married, you're like, okay, I'm gonna be in this forever. I think about divorce. That's never something I believe couples think about when you first get married. It's not like, okay, I'm getting married, we may get a divorce. No, that was never in my mind at all. And so we had a great marriage in the beginning. Like I said, we were young, we were finding ourselves. We would travel, we would do things together as a family. And then I do know that little things started to that were red flags that I should have taken notice of, that I did not. So I really should have taken notice and should have stopped things kind of in their tracks. And I know we'll get more into it, but that's just kind of in a nutshell. In the beginning, I did see the red flags. I did see where kind of I went wrong, he went wrong, and where we should have stopped things. And then fast forward, I mean, we have two beautiful kids together. But like I said, in 2019, I was just done. I was tired. And I filed for divorce. So
When people hear divorce or the word
yeah,
divorce, a lot of people assume that it has something to do with infidelity, or it
hmm
could be a situation where the two parties are having difficulty with finances,
yeah,
infidelity, and not being on the same page when it comes to the financial aspect of the relationship or of the union between two people. When
yeah.
you talk about there were red flags and there were things that were here and there that you saw and that he saw, to where both of you all were not on the same page, what were those red flags, if you care to share?
Yes, definitely. I'm all about transparency. And if I could help somebody, so to never go through a divorce, that's my ultimate goal, to see people like in happy, healthy, loving relationships and to get through these hard times. because when you get married, divorce should never be, I feel like an option unless, you're being physically abused, things of that nature.
Yes, I'm glad you said that because I don't want to single out domestic violence, and verbal
Right.
abuse and physical abuse can also play a
Verbal,
instrumental
right.
role in
Exactly,
divorce. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Even alcoholism as well.
Alcoholism, absolutely. So the red flags were some, him talking to other females, still saying, that they were friends, so I feel like emotional cheating was there. And then also verbal abuse was there. And I'll never forget my mom's good friend, she told me at the time before we got married, she said, because she knew I was going through the verbal abuse, she said, that never goes away. And that's something that, you shouldn't be marrying this man. And in my mind, I'm like, what does she know? I love him and I'm gonna marry him. So that was one of the red flags that I ignored. And then again, the emotional cheating, him not being honest and truthful about the relationships that he had going on, before and after me. So
Hmm. I know it can be a toll on you mentally to have to go through that.
yeah.
Now, what about you on your end? Were there some things that you played a part in during the
Ab-
marriage that?
oh, absolutely. I felt like, for me, Sean, I can honestly say I did not cheat on my husband until I found out that he was unfaithful to me. And that doesn't make it right. But I did. Once I found out that he was unfaithful, I began to cheat. I began
Mm,
to, and it's not right. I shouldn't have, because that's not who I am as a person. I'm a firm believer in, um, if you're faithful, if you're a loyal person, be that all the way. Don't do it just because somebody else is doing it. Because at the end of the day, to me, that's not love. Okay. So be who you are. But I began to cheat. And also I began to emotionally and physically as well. And so, you know, it's just, like you said, it wasn't a good feeling. Even after I cheated, it was like, okay, I mean, I still want to be with my husband. It was like, what did that do? So it wasn't something that I should have done. It's definitely something that I regret. And then also not setting boundaries. Um, I remember we went out with a couple of our friends. This was before we got married, and he was like dancing on another female. And I was like, wow, like that's really disrespectful. And when he came to me about it, because he saw um my disposition and he saw my demeanor, he was like, okay, he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing, I just kind of kept my mouth shut. But I should have said, hey, that's disrespectful. Like, you need to respect me. And, when we're out, that's, you shouldn't be doing that. We're together. And so that was like little things like that, not setting boundaries and just the level of respect that you should show someone that you are into or who you are in a relationship or are going to marry. So little things like that, I let those things, come in and just kind of seep in, and it grew. It grew from there. And that's really how we ended up divorced, like those little things, the disrespect, the dishonoring. So it's things that should have been, Sean, nipped in the bud in the beginning, but they weren't.
hmm. Let's talk about the kids for a moment.
Yes.
You mentioned two kids that you
Yes.
and your ex-husband are still taken care of, but
Yes.
two kids, very innocent.
Yeah.
I know it must have been very damaging for them to come to terms with the fact that mommy and daddy are not in the same household anymore. But backtrack, but to rewind that, did they see any of this particular activity going on inside the household or outside of the household? And if so, what were they going through? Like, what was the reaction that you would get from your kids if they saw this kind of activity?
Yeah, so the kids never saw much of what I went through, and it was a lot of verbal abuse. And so the kids maybe probably did experience it a little bit more than I probably know. But when I look back on it, I'm like, man, did because my son, he's the oldest, he's 10. So he probably experienced it more than my daughter, who's 4. And so verbally, I think the verbal abuse probably definitely has had an effect on him. And we're now correcting that, as far as the way he talks to mom or the way he talks to just any female in general. So that's something that's still, being corrected today. But the kids have my son, he was born when I was when we got married. So we got married May 15th, 2010. He was born June 2nd, 2010. So he was the life of our marriage. And we told him, we said, mommy and daddy will always be together. And I believe, and I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. I believe it broke his heart, when we said that we were getting a divorce. Because we had told him like we'll always be together. And he had been with us, like I said, for the life of our marriage. And so when you take a child and put them in the midst of a divorce, and as an adult, it's hard on adults. So think about him as a child and this broken promise. It's like, how does he deal with that? And that was on the forefront of my mind when I did initially file for divorce. And I'll tell you now, it's something that I still have to talk to myself about and talk to God about today. How can I just further, like mentally, have him still be like a great person, like coming through a divorce? I know it's not the end of the world, but it has taken a toll on him. And he sometimes, he does act out. And so it's hard. It has been hard for him. My little girl, my baby girl, it doesn't really affect her as much. She just knows that mom and dad are in 2 different places. But you do notice that, when she's with daddy, of course, she's a daddy's girl. So she's always clinging to him. And, when she's with me, when she's with him, she asks about me. And so she's like, when's mommy coming to pick us up? So it's hard. It is hard. And sometimes she'll cry, and I'll have to coddle her. So, and I know that's the emotion coming from her wanting mom and dad to be together. It's just like, as a parent, you can feel it. And so I'll just coddle her, So it's been very tough on the kids. And I will say this, if I had to do it over again, and maybe I'm saying this too early on in our interview, if I had to do it over again, I would have really considered staying together and trying to work it out for the kids. I really would have. I really would have. If I could go back and do it again, I
So
would.
you would go back if you had the opportunity to step into the time machine and go back in time and work things out. You and him would have overcame, or do you think you all would have overcame the obstacles of what you two went through in the marriage, from the verbal abuse to the cheating? Because some people that are watching this
Yeah.
content and listening to us at the same time, some people are already telling themselves that I would never ever go back to that. If I had to do it all over again, I would have remained single, because I would never ever want to go through what Dominique went through.
Yeah. So I would say of course, I would have tried to work it out. I'm not saying that um maybe we wouldn't have, been together. Maybe it would have still ended in divorce, but I would say that I I believe in my heart of hearts that we probably could have grown through, the pains, and I honestly don't know if he knows, like, even what he did was verbal abuse. So you see what I'm saying? I don't think
Mm.
that the acknowledgement, I don't think he knows that it was verbal abuse. And so that's where counseling comes in. And at the time when he begged me, he wanted me to go to counseling at the end of 2019. And I just said no. I was done and I didn't want to do it. However, I should have done it. I should have went to counseling with him. So, it's easy to say, no, I would never go back to that. But until you are in the situation
Mm-hmm.
with kids, having to make that decision, I honestly, I don't, know what anyone else would do, but I would say I probably would have gone to counseling with him to see if we could work those things out, work through the verbal abuse.
Right.
I'm not saying stay through something if somebody keeps verbally abusing you or physically abusing you. No, because that's not healthy. But I do believe going to counseling, and if that person is committed to, getting help, acknowledging what they're doing, and in some type of therapy to help them get through, and acknowledge what they're doing.
Let's talk about that for a moment. Therapy. I mentioned that
Yeah.
many of us, including myself, have went through some form of mental health coming out of a relationship, and even for those who have been divorced or coming out of a marriage. Why do you think there are couples out there that don't want to go through the process of getting counseling or getting some form of therapy? Why is that?
I believe that's ignorance. And I say that really strongly because within any relationship that you have, you're always going to have conflict, right? And it's up to us to resolve those issues of conflict. If you can't resolve those issues yourself, meaning between you and your spouse, to me, the next level would be to go to therapy if you want to see your relationship work, if you want it to be successful. I don't know any other way. I feel like, especially in the Black community, therapy is like like taboo. Like we're not supposed to tell people our business. Because I'll be honest, I grew up and it's like my mom was like, you don't tell nobody our business. Our business stays in the house, right?
Mhm.
And so we're not used to in our community talking about our feelings to other people, but it's okay. I think somebody said it best. It's okay to have Jesus, to know Jesus, and have a therapist too. We need to talk about those feelings. And so I really feel like there's a level of ignorance if you're not willing to go to therapy, because we need help. We need more help than we can help ourselves. So in order to get that help, you have to go on the outside. You can't fix it. Clearly, what you're doing is not fixing it. So you have to go on the outside. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Or even if you are single or an individual like myself, I have been going through different forms of counseling. We talked about this offline, Dominique, about
Yes.
my
Yeah.
journey on my mental health and the number of sessions that I had to put myself in
Yeah.
through this particular therapist to let this therapist know what I'm going through
Right.
and what had happened after the relationship or even during the relationship. It's always good to talk about those things and vent things out to a specialized or a professional person who works in that particular profession, because there is some certain type of bias that happens when you talk to other people, whether it's your
Right.
friends or whether
Right.
it's your family members. They're
Right.
gonna say that, oh, you need to leave him alone, or you need to leave her alone. Oh,
Right.
girl, you know you too good to be in this
Can
situation.
I say something about that really quick?
Sure, please, absolutely.
And this is the main downfall of a lot of when people let influences from outside, such as their friends or family members, know this. Keep your family and friends out of your business, because this is the reason why. You made a vow to your spouse or your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You made a vow to them. Your family and friends, they are not going to love that person like you love them. Okay. So in showing them unconditional love, that's the person who you've committed to. When you tell your family or friend, like, hey, such and such did this, hey, such and such did that, they're not looking, through the eyes of, okay, they love them unconditionally, or I love them unconditionally, just like Dominique loves her husband. No, they're looking from the eyes of, this is my family member. You did them wrong. Now we finna think about what we're gonna do to probably possibly get you back. Like, or, it's just another lens. It's another perspective that you don't need. Unless they are saying, hey, I'm gonna pray with you. Oh, I'm gonna pray with you through that. That's the type of support that you need. Because when you let other people in, they're not looking from the same lens that you are looking from with loving your spouse. That's bottom line. So keep them out of your marriage, keep them out of your relationship, bottom line.
Keep them out unless you bring them into the situation or into the
yeah,
marriage.
yeah, and that's the thing. Now, if you bringing them into the relationship, and it's fair game. It's like, you can't be mad if your mom's like, remember what he did or what he said, so it's certain. You have to, and let me say this too, you have to be careful about what you tell your family and friends about your spouse.
Yeah, because mama don't want to get that call at 2:42 in the morning from Dominique, and Dominique is talking about, my man ain't doing me right. He's going through all this type of stuff. And your mama tells you, honey, I tried to tell you, look, you always got a place to stay over here.
Yeah,
Pack your bags
exactly.
Exactly.
And that's how it's gonna come out. Or she don't want to get that call like, I just caught him cheating, or he was talking to another woman. So be very careful. Think before you tell them that. If you know that you're gonna forgive that person through that infidelity or whatever, I feel like that's when you need to be going to a counselor. That's who you need to tell the business to, because the counselor and Jesus is going to help you, work through that infidelity.
And I want to circle back to something that you said earlier involving the kids. The kids play such a pivotal role in this matter.
Yeah.
It's hurtful that two people who have known each other for quite some time or for a short period of time get married to end up in divorce. But it's even more worse and hurtful to the kids. I think a lot of us as kids, we have this image in our heads that we're going to be like the family on these television sitcoms. We're going to stay together like the Cosbys. We're going to stay together like the family on Family Matters. And all these television sitcoms that we were raised off on. But in reality, when the inevitable happens, whether mom or dad is no longer in the picture or whatever the case may be, after that, it's totally devastating for a child of his and her age in those years where they are starting to soak everything up like sponges. For them to see their mom and dad go through this situation. And you're right. Your son can act up, or your daughter can act out in response to what the parents had to do. But do you think it just takes time for the kids to really grasp everything before they come to terms with it? Do you think it is a process for them?
I do believe, just like it's a process for me. It's a process. The kids, I mentioned therapy. We're putting our son in therapy because we see how it has affected him. And we want him to still know, like, mommy and daddy loves you, even though we are not together. We still want the best for you and Radiant. You will always be our kids. We will always be there for you. It's just that mommy and daddy did not work out. And in one of his therapy sessions, the counselor, she likened it to, hey, it's kind of like, what did she say? She gave an example. She said, mommy's pizza, and daddy's ice cream. Like, would you put those two things together? It's like, they're different. They're different people. So it's like, if your kids are struggling through it, they need to be put in therapy too, so they can get like little analogies like that. So that a counselor can break it down to their level, and so they can understand and process through the feelings as well, and process through the divorce. So it
Right.
absolutely is a process.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a process. I didn't come from a household where mom and dad got married. They were together, but they ended up breaking up. And it
Okay.
wasn't because of me. It was just that they were in two different places mentally. It wasn't too much devastating to me because I was just only a kid. I didn't understand it.
Right.
But I can understand now at 37 and thinking back to all the years that I could have spent more with my dad.
Yeah.
You just have those questions in your mind asking yourself, like, what if mom and dad had gotten married? Would I have
Yeah.
had another sibling? Would I've had a brother or a sister? Or would it
Right.
have last the same amount of years, almost to Sha'ria's parents? Like I said earlier,
Right.
Sha'ria's
Right.
parents
50,
has been married
50,
for more than
over
50
57.
years
Yes,
in the
that's
last
a blessing. That's
podcast.
amazing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, people don't make it to that mark.
Yeah.
Some end up in divorce after 6 months of marriage, or even after a year or a year or two. At the same time, it does take a process to get finalized, to finally finalize the marriage, but it also gives two parties ample time to figure out if this is something that they really, really want to do. As there have been times after December 2019 and before January 2021, has there been times where you all gave it a second thought and be like, yo, let's go seek therapy, let's do this, let's do that? I know you mentioned about the therapy and everything, but has
Mhm.
there ever been conversations where you all have given it a second thought?
No, there wasn't. And I'll tell you why. At the time, um, when I wanted to, here's the thing, Sean. When I filed for divorce, I chose myself. I chose myself. I was selfish. I chose myself. I truly believe in a marriage that, again, and I always say, unless it's physical, abuse, alcoholism, things like that, that's kind of hard to come back from. Verbal abuse as well. Um, at the end of the day, I chose myself. And when he wanted to go to counseling, I said no. And that was pretty much it. And I'll tell you, here's the thing too. So, and I want people to understand, um, just kind of a little bit, more of my story. So it's not just when my husband had asked. So here's the thing. In the beginning, when I felt that we needed counseling, 5-year mark, I said, hey, we should go to counseling, because there's some things I feel like we don't see eye to eye on. We need to work out. And his response was, we don't need to go to counseling. You are my counselor. I talk to you about everything. I'm like, yeah, but it's some things that I don't even understand about our relationship. We need to see a counselor. And so at the time we did. We went to a counselor who actually married us. We went to the pastor that married us, and we had a one session with him. And
Mm-hmm.
after that one session, we were actually about to move to California. After that one session, we was like, okay, we can now go forward. I felt really great. I felt really good about the marriage. And I said, okay, we can go forward. But we needed more sessions than that. We needed just more than one session. So that was a mistake on our end. We should have continued the counseling. Um, and so, when we were in California, everything was good. You know why everything was good? Because we were away from family and friends. So guess what, Sean? It was just us. We didn't have nobody but us. We couldn't run the mom. We couldn't run the dad. He couldn't run his grandmother. He couldn't run his mother. And so it was just us within the marriage, and we had to talk things out. We had to sort things out, and so it was good. So we had a good run when we were out in California. However, when we moved back to Atlanta, it's like, oh my goodness, things just took a turn, for the worse. It was like old things started to come back. And it was just downfall from there. And then we also had financial issues as well. That was a big issue. And so, man, it was just a lot. And so when I say, so the counseling pretty much, at the end, when he said, let's go to counseling, I was pretty much done. I said no, when I should have said yes, to be quite honest. And then two, I'll say this, after we decided, so we sat down and we had a talk, and we were like, okay, because he found out that I was cheating on him, and he was like, that really broke my heart. And I said, okay. I was like, well, you broke mine too, and this is why. And after we had that heart-to-heart conversation, we were like, okay, we're good. We're getting back on the right track. We are going to forge through. We're gonna build this. We're gonna rebuild this thing. But then he goes back out and he does something, and I won't divulge the information, but he goes back out and does something I feel really, irresponsible and disrespectful. And I'm like, if we're trying to work on something, I need you to be committed to working on it. Don't go back out and do this. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm like, okay, you're not serious about us being together. And so I don't want people just to think that I just gave up and then I just threw in a towel and was like, no, I wasn't trying to hear him out. So that's what happened.
Right. No point of no return.
Yeah.
In this marriage. Wow.
Yeah, but I will say there is a point of a return, because like I said, I was selfish and I chose myself. When he asked to go to counseling, when he poured his heart out, I should have said yes, and we should have went to counseling. I think maybe if we were, maybe we would still be together. I don't know, because I didn't go to counseling when he asked at the very end.
Yeah. Some things in a marriage or on their way to being a divorce, it brings out a lot of teachable moments.
Yes.
And I don't know, a lot of us, whether we are not on the outside looking in or not, we always go back to those moments and think about, man, what could I have done differently to save this marriage? And in therapy, I had a therapist tell me at one point, you cannot control the past,
right,
or what happens in the past. You can only think about the now and move forward from there. We cannot control it. We can't go into a time machine and go back in time and fix things. We can just learn the lessons that were brought to us in the marriage or in the relationship and learn from them. So that way, if we do go into a new relationship with someone else or go into a new marriage with someone else, we can just take those lessons that we learned and not make the same mistakes in the new relationship we have with other people. So we all go through those moments and times where things become teachable. We all came into the world without a manual on how we didn't have a manual on how we should conduct things or how we should go about doing things in a marriage. We can only go by stories that our grandparents instilled in us. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where we have to learn as we grow and as we continue to go into our lives. I want to pull up some information. I'm going to get into some information courtesy of the CDC in just a few moments. And for those
Okay.
who are just tuning in to Love and Poetry podcast with yours truly, the architect Sean Garvey, Sha'ria Thomas is away for this evening. She is away for this evening, but we'll be back on the next episode. We are talking to singer, songwriter, and educator Dominique. This episode is called The Bounce Back Life After Marriage. And in the headlines over the past few days, we have came across stories about celebrities that have filed for divorce or are in
Mm,
the process of filing for divorce. One of the stories that come to my mind is comedian Gary Owen. In case you are not aware,
wow.
Gary Owen, or Owen rather, wife files for divorce. And in his stand-up comedy, he is known to talk about his family, including his wife, and make jokes about their marriage, about their relationship, about their personal life. But the comedian's wife, whose name is Kenya Duke, filed divorce documents recently in Los Angeles County Superior Court, according to online records. And then before that, Dominique, a few days ago, there was this whole thing about actress and entertainer Jennifer Lopez and Alex Rodriguez, baseball player. They were splitting up.
Yeah.
And then it came back that they are working things out.
Yeah.
You hear these stories all the time. And for me, who is still looking to get married one day, it sometimes put myself in the position of feeling uncomfortable to even get married. Let's
Hmm.
say you, like when you hear these stories, and also thinking back to the time that you spent with your ex-husband and what you went through, do you even have reservations about getting married again?
I don't have any reservations about getting married again. I now know what to do and what to look for. You know, it's like my therapist said, like when you do it one go round, she said the second time around, you should basically be putting a cap on it. Like that's it, you know. I don't have any reservations just because quite frankly, my relationship with God, I'm trusting and believing in him that I know he'll send the person for me. And ultimately, I feel like the person that I marry next will be my best friend. We will build a nice friendship before we ever get to talking about a relationship. I do know that was the downfall of my first marriage. We were just kind of like, oh, we were just so in love, and that's it. I'm here to tell you, for me, love is not enough. Love is not enough, because what happens one day when you wake up next to that person and you see the ugly side of them, and you like, okay, I'm not feeling you right now. So, and then we go into, and what I talk about, I know we'll talk about this later, is love being a choice, you choosing to love.
Mm,
So I know that I do look at these stories and I'm like, man, what could possibly be going on to make them want to split or get a divorce? Because I do feel like you can love through anything. It's just up to you, in in deciding what you will love through, and what you won't. you know
yeah, yeah. It's crazy these days.
yeah, yeah.
It seems like compared to 40 or even 60 years ago,
Eh,
it was less divorce.
yes,
It was
yes,
less divorce. And I remember a friend of
yes,
mine once upon a time told me that in the black community, it was vitally important for two people to stay together because that's all they have.
yes,
They that's
yes,
it was a mean for survival.
yes,
We all we got. But like now,
yes,
fast forward, you hear these type of narratives all the time from two people, from men and women, women saying, well, I don't need a man to be complete. I don't need a man to take care of me. I got my own. And then you
right,
hear guys say, oh man, I ain't never getting married, man. Marriage is just a piece of paper, man. You know, there's so many women out here. We hear all these different things in these days and times to make it seem as if marriage is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So you do. I don't believe marriage is a bad thing. I believe it's a beautiful thing when it's with the right person. I do believe marriage is a ministry. And so if you are a selfish person, I repeat, if you are a selfish person and not willing to compromise or give in or die to yourself, then you're right. You shouldn't be married because you will not last long in a marriage. And so I will say that, yeah, if you're a man and you're selfish and you don't want to die to self and you don't want to give up, your singlehood or your bachelorhood, then no, you shouldn't get married. Same thing if you're a woman and you want to do things the way you want to do them and you don't want to die to self, you don't want to give up your singlehood, then no, you shouldn't be married. Two selfish people getting married, it will not work. It will not work. And so marriage is a ministry. And it is beautiful when it's between two people who are willing to die to themselves.
Hmm. I did say that I was going to pull up some information according to the CDC. And according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the current divorce rate is just 2.9 per 1,000. However, only 45 states and the District of Columbia submitted enough data to be considered in this nationwide study, as Indiana, California, Hawaii, New Mexico, and Minnesota are not counted. There may be some variation on this figure. Now, these statistics come from a 2019 report regarding the divorce rate in America. And recent divorce rates suggest a decrease in the number of people dissolving their marriage. Fast forward to COVID-19, we have heard a lot of stories, Dominique, of people saying, I'm done.
Yeah.
They have said, I am
Listen,
done. I am
COVID-19 got people coming out. Look, you had to spend time with your spouse in the house. You couldn't get away
yeah,
from them.
yeah. Now this is this part of the information right here, Dominique. According to Bloomberg Wealth, the number of Americans getting divorced plummeted last year. That is COVID-19 2020, while the marriage rate also dropped as thousands of weddings were postponed or canceled,
Yeah.
according to a new study. So there were more postponed weddings and marriages in 2020 than they were than divorces were.
Right, right. Well, that
Yeah.
that 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 makes sense. And also due to COVID too, you really couldn't. I mean, the courts weren't really open, so you really couldn't really get a divorce through. But that's a good thing too. Like I said, I'm for marriage. I'm for people staying together
Mhm.
and being married. And so I look forward to it, the next person who I marry. I do plan on remarrying. And so again, marriage is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
wanted to point that information out, Dominique, that this situation or the situation that happened between you and your ex-husband, this happened
Mhm.
before COVID-19. So
Yes.
the misconception out there has been, oh, there's been more divorces from COVID-19 because COVID-19 opened up a lot of epiphanies in people, in marriages, and
Mm-hmm.
what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But divorces, these type of things has happened before COVID-19.
Right. Right.
And like you said, that it is so refreshing to hear that you are not willing to give up on a second chance. You don't want to use your past as a crutch into your potential new relationship with whoever God sends to you.
Right.
Because it's all teachable moments, teachable lessons at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, definitely going through a divorce has taught me a lot about myself, including I thought my stuff didn't stink. And I thought that I was just like the perfect, wife. But I was I wasn't, let's just be honest. We all like to think great about ourselves. But there are some things that I see that I have to work on, and I'm
Yeah.
still working through those things. And so a lot of teachable moments, even through the divorce, going through the divorce. And I'll tell you this, I still had to love my ex-spouse through our divorce. And that's one of the things that I talk about in the book that I wrote. So, just learning, I had to learn to love him regardless. I think I thought I was getting away from him by divorcing him, but God was like, no, like my will be done. Like this still will happen. And you're still going to have to learn to love him. Because through the divorce, you have to think about it's so many emotions. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
even think we talked about this in depthly, but within this going through a divorce, there's so many emotions that go with going through a divorce. It is tough. And I will never wish going through divorce on anybody. And so that's why I'm an advocate for staying together and building healthier relationships and teaching people how to, number one, love themselves, which to me is ultimately, what type of marriage, you will build. If you don't love yourself, then ultimately the marriage will crumble, you know, because there's certain foundational things that you have to know going within into a marriage that you have to know and believe about yourself in order for the marriage to be successful. But those are all the things again that I talk about. But I do believe that you can love through anything, and I had to learn to love my spouse even through our divorce, my ex-spouse through a divorce.
Yeah. What is your advice to people who are looking to get married before they read those vows? My thing is,
Mhm.
have a conversation first, or have as many conversations with your potential spouse before you read those vows. Here in this country, when we are in front of a pastor and we read those vows, we're telling each other that through better or for worse, through sickness and in health, we have to,
Yes,
as
yes,
two parties
yes,
joining in unity, we have to
yes,
abide by those vows.
yes,
But in reality, when things like happen with what you went through, we will tend to, and I hate to use the word against, we would go against those vows in order
yes.
for what is best for us. Not just only for me, but
Right.
for all parties involved. Let's say you, what is your advice?
So I would definitely say, know thyself, number one. You have to know who you are. Secondly, um, know yourself and then love yourself. Okay, that's the first thing. Because you can't learn to love somebody else or love somebody unconditionally if you don't love yourself. That's first foremost. Okay. Um, Secondly, you have to be willing to die to yourself. You have to have some type of compromise. You can't always be wanting to be right all the time. And so that's the second thing. And then thirdly is just have open communication with that person. As long as you guys are transparent about everything, even the stuff that hurts, you have to be transparent because that's where growth comes. To me, pain is just basically, um, I feel like pain helps you, get through things, but it's also growth happening, right? And so if you don't tell your spouse and you don't have the open communication, you don't have the transparency that you can tell them those things that hurts, then it's like, what do you have? What do you have? So those are the three things that I would say. Loving yourself first and knowing yourself. Number two, what did I say number two was?
But you said a combination of everything. The most
Yeah.
important thing that stood out to me and to our listeners is knowing yourself and loving yourself.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness, y'all. Which is why I am. I am, and it's more coming soon. Yeah, I'm so excited about what God is just doing through me, because it's Him. Just how to teaching people how to love themselves. Because to me, that is the foundation for every relationship that you have, whether it's with your mother, your dad, your spouse, your brother, your sister, uncle. If you don't love yourself and know yourself, um, people will be able to just come in and tell you who you are, or just do things, and you don't have any boundaries. But no, when you know yourself and when you love yourself, it's different. It's a different type of confidence. It's a different type of respect. It's just a different type of love that you can offer to
Mm-hmm.
people. And so that's the beauty of it. And so, but you have to first love yourself first, because if you think about it, that is the platform, that's the foundation from how we love other people. If you can't forgive yourself for something that happened, then guess what, you're not going to be able to forgive your mom, you're not going to be able to forgive your spouse. That's why you have to forgive yourself. You have to learn to forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that and try to love on other people if you don't love yourself. I'm telling you, every relationship will fail. It will not work. Okay, people, you got to learn to love yourself first.
One of the things that were mentioned in my therapy session: love
Yes,
yourself. Yes, love yourself,
yes,
know yourself.
yes,
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Now,
yes.
where are we at after the marriage? Where are the two of you and your ex-husband, have you all have you all since the marriage and since the divorce, do you all still maintain some sort of amicable relationship, just towards each other and for the kids?
We do. So we do. That's the great thing about it. We have become good friends. We have we are able to talk about certain things, even still, that happen within the marriage, that let us down, that disappointed each other, and then we're able to process those things and move forward. So there is a level of respect there. There's a level of transparency there after the divorce. But it leads me to think, okay, could we have done these things within our marriage? How would we be
Mm-hmm.
now? But it is what it is now. But yes, we have maintained a level of respect. We have an amicable relationship. We are co-parenting very well. And
Good.
so I'm just so thankful that we are able to have that type of relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing too, because you did give out some great points and great advice on what people can do before they go into a marriage. What about people that are heading towards divorce? What is your advice to them that are at home right now and they contemplating about pulling out those divorce papers or telling their significant other or their spouse, I want a divorce? Those are the 4 words: I want a divorce. That's something that a lot of us
Yes,
don't want to hear,
yeah.
but it is a part of reality. What do you say? What is your advice to those that are heading into that direction?
I would say first seek God first. Because he is the one who you guys made those vows, um, in holy matrimony, you know, seek God first. And then two, please get some counseling, get some therapy. See if the issues that you guys have, you know, are you able to work through those things before you consider divorce? And then also consider the kids. I would say consider the kids, because not saying that the kids won't bounce back, that they won't be okay, because there's thousands of kids, millions of kids that have gone through divorce and they're okay. But at the end of the day, um, you're gonna experience, if you get divorced, you're gonna experience a set of problems with somebody else. They just may be a different set of problems.
Right.
So it's like, to me, it's like almost like pick your poison. Again, unless you are being physically abused, verbally abused, alcoholism, substance abuse, um, you know, and it's just no coming back. Seek counseling. Like you have got to know that trouble won't last always, and we're gonna always, in relationships, we're always gonna have conflict. you know no matter who we marry, there's always going to be conflict. You're not going to be with the perfect husband. Say you get divorced and you get remarried, no, it's not going to be the perfect spouse, but you learn to work together. And so there's always going to be a set of problems. So before you consider going through divorce, yeah, consider those things. Seek God first, get
Mm-hmm.
counseling. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great advice
Yeah.
to share with our listeners, whatever they're going through or going in the household, going through in the household with their significant other and their significant spouse. We want to make sure that they come out of the marriage knowing that there's always light at the end of the
End of
tunnel.
the tunnel.
And
Yes.
you're
Yes.
not in it by yourself. You may think that this type of thing is going to happen a lot. You may not come out of it, but don't think like that. You always got to think positive coming
Yeah.
out of this. And there's always people that are going through the same thing that you're going through. There's even a support group that will
Right.
help you get through this process together. And I am just so happy to come across you, Dominique. I've known you for years, on and off,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
took that one video that you put out there on Facebook that
Oh
caught a
man.
lot of
Yeah.
people's attention on
Yeah.
you talking about you had a divorce. And the crazy thing about it is that you didn't tell a lot of people that you went through a divorce and that you finalized it. It was like you kept it under the radar from a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
people. You may have
Yeah.
told your family or some of your friends, but people
Yeah.
that follow you because you are a public figure, people that follow you and know you, they had no idea that you kept this
Yeah.
under the rug. And so your reasoning for that is what? Like, why did you want it to keep it private?
Well, again, you know, when going through divorce, it's not something that I'm proud about. It's not something that I wanted to publicly, display, because, to be honest, Sean, I was embarrassed, embarrassed at first, is the reason why I didn't share a lot. I was embarrassed. It's like, how am I going to explain this failed marriage? What will people think about me? So that's the reason initially why I did not share. And number two, the belief that it ain't nobody's business.
Well, yeah. It ain't
you know?
nobody's business. Hey, it ain't nobody's business until you put it out there on social
Right,
media.
right. Yeah, it wasn't anybody's business unless I felt compelled to share. And it wasn't nobody's business, and I felt like I wanted to also protect my children, because they would have to, hear about it, or I didn't want, it to get out, in some way, because my son, he is on social media. So so I didn't want it to kind of be like out there like that, the stuff that I was putting out. But yeah, I just kept it under wraps until it was something for certain, until I was ready to tell people my story and what I went through. And the reason why I made that video on Facebook, for Facebook and Instagram, was because I felt like a lot of people go through divorce and they don't have an outlet. They don't have anything to compare it to. So I was finding difficulty processing my feelings, like connecting to my feelings. And that's again why I was in therapy, and I'm still in therapy. And then I didn't have anything. And that's why I decided to write the book as well. I was just like, there has got to be something out here to help people who are going through a divorce, like the feelings, the emotions. And that's why I felt compelled to make the video. And then also any, like yourself, going through a breakup, I just liken a divorce. It's a spiritual death. It's a spiritual death because number
Mm-hmm.
one is like the breaking apart of two people, two souls. You're pulling those two things apart.
Right.
And when you pull those things apart, it's like what's left. When you pull two things apart, you think about like, oh, it's struggle, it's tension. And then it's like
Yeah.
what's left. And you see, residue, heartbreak, feelings of rejection, everything on the floor, on the table. And it's like, how do you process through that? How do you get through that? And that's why I wrote the book, Let Love Be Your Guide. It was just like my way of helping people to process through divorce, and then helping myself, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to expect. To be honest, I was naive. I thought me and my ex would get a divorce and I would be fine. I would be like, oh, worries are gone. Like, I don't have no worries. I'm good over here. Like, hey.
Yeah.
But no, it's not like that. And that's why I want to caution people, if you are considering a divorce, please seek God first and also go to counseling and therapy.
Mm.
And do everything that you can do to try to hold that marriage together. There's so many resources out there for couples who are struggling, or relationships. Use those resources, because it's not easy. It's not pretty. It's not,
Right.
oh, you get rid of that person and your life is going to be better. No, yeah, in the long run it may be, but there's emotions that go with that. There's a lot that
Yeah.
goes with that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So we only got a few minutes left right here on Love and Poetry
all
Podcast
right.
before we go into our mindful moment with Shanta Hayes, and hopefully we can get a poem or two out of Dominique, or have her sing for us for just a
Oh.
few moments. Inquiring minds want to know, Dominique, because we follow each other on social media. I've been seeing you
Yeah.
getting it in, from just enjoying life to working out in the gym. What is Dominique up to nowadays? You established that whoever comes into your life will be meant for you. But inquiring minds want to know, are you just taking time out from being involved in the dating scene? Like, where are you at right now? Or are you just focusing on your endeavors and your spiritual journey?
Yeah, so right now I am focusing more so on my endeavors and my spiritual journey. It's important for me to know who I am coming out of this divorce, and to rediscover myself, to discover what I like, what I want, my dislikes. So it's important for me to do that. And I would encourage anybody coming out of a relationship to do that. Take that time out. I know it's human nature to want to cling to somebody or fall back in love so quickly, but I believe that's where we make the mistake. You have to know yourself. You have to take this season and just focus on you. I'm loving on myself. I'm doing those things that I have always wanted to do with my spouse. I'm going on trips. I'm traveling a lot more.
Mm,
I'm
mm,
loving on my kids. And so everything that I wanted to do with him, it's like I'm taking those things and I'm doing it with myself, because I
yeah.
know that will lead to, me just being good to myself. And I know I'll attract that person who's going to continually be good to me, because I have expectations, for the next man that comes in.
Mm.
There's a lot, so that
There's a
I'm
lot.
expecting. Yeah, there's a
You
lot.
got,
So,
oh boy. You hear
no, I
that?
don't
You hear
have a
that,
list,
fellas?
but but there's a lot. The expectation, is I'm dating myself, I'm loving on myself, so
Mm.
I expect you to treat me at this level or even more, take it up a notch, so there's the expectation. I already have the expectation with myself, so that means nobody can come in and try to do things below this expectation, because I already know what I want, and if I require, and
Uh,
I know right
right.
off the bat, so yeah. And so I'm
Okay.
loving on myself. I'm writing books. I've just completed a book in December, Let Love Be Your Guide. It's called, how to get through. It's a devotional on how to get through divorce or a breakup, and teaching people how to love yourself. It's a series. So that's one thing that I'm working on. And then I'm also in grad school. I'm getting my master's in education, focusing on social studies and language arts. So
Nice.
it's a lot going on. So, at the end of the day, yeah, I'm focusing on me. I'm building me up. And I feel like that love will come, because I'm building myself up, and I know that everything that I want, that I desire, it will come.
Nice, nice. And all those things that you mentioned, the endeavors, your projects, your book, and everything, of course, you're going to keep us posted, and we'll make
Yes.
sure that we give
Hopefully you have
our
me
listeners.
back on the show.
Yeah, so we
Yes,
gotta
when I
we gotta
have
talk about them. Yeah. Gotta talk about your new book and all your
yes.
great endeavors and what have you. I'm looking forward to it. That's already set in stone.
Yes, yes. And a podcast too. I'm coming out with a podcast called Let
Yes.
Love Be
Yeah.
Your Guide. So those are all the things that are in the works, and I will definitely keep you guys posted, within the next few months. We'll be
Nice.
starting that. So
Nice. Speaking of all the great things that you are doing as we get ready to conclude this podcast, care to share a poem or something that you wrote recently, or even if you want to sing us something? Of course, we know you as a singer and songwriter, but we like to close out the
yeah.
show with a little something, something.
Oh goodness, you put me on the
Yeah.
spot.
Hey, how many years have you known me, Dominique? This is nothing new.
Oh my God. That's what you mean. It's nothing new. It is
Yeah.
new. It is
I
new.
see you turning the pages unless you,
Yeah, I'm
got
trying. I'm
some.
trying to look. I'm trying to go look. Hold on, let me see what I can do. Uh
Okay. And while Dominique is looking for something, want to encourage you all to tune in to Love and Poetry every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Beatbreak 87 FM, beatbreakradiofm.com, and on the Podcast FM app. Uh, you came across something already, Dominique? Or you still
no,
going?
I can't believe you. I'm gonna get you guys.
Okay. Well, can you sing for us a little something, something?
um yeah, I can.
Okay. Just a little taste.
Okay.
All right.
Y'all, this is song is going through this divorce. I'm like, okay, this is so much more meaningful now. So
Okay. Can't wait to hear it. Dominique, ladies and gentlemen.
okay. I've gone through many hard trials, through temptations on every hand. Though Satan's tried to stop me,
Uh-oh. Did we lose Dominique? She was doing so incredible. She was doing so incredible. I got to give her a finger snap for that. We lost Dominique. Hopefully she'll be back on before we close out the show. But that was great. That was great. Dominique, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the bounce back from a divorce right here on Love and Poetry Podcast. Did we get Dominique back on? Hold on. Let's see. You will need to unmute. You got to unmute yourself. There
what
you go. You was on.
happened?
I do not know. That's a great question, Dominique. You was on a roll there, and then we lost connection.
Oh, that was so
I think it
weird.
was yeah, yeah. Your amazing singing
Thank you.
caused us to lose
Oh,
connection.
you so
It was so great. It was so great. The internet connection was like, oh, I can't take it no more.
right. But did you get a snippet of it? As long as you
I
got
got a
it.
snippet. I did.
Okay.
It
Okay.
was lovely. It was lovely. But we really
Okay.
appreciate you for coming on the show and sharing your powerful
Thank you.
testimony. And for our viewers and listeners out there, go ahead and give your followers your social media handles and how they can reach you.
Yes. Yeah, so please follow me at Dominique Chantel on Instagram, and then also on Facebook. You can find me Dominique Chantel on Facebook, and you can stay up to date. Basically, I post anything that I'm doing as far as like my podcast, as far as musically. Right now, again, I'm working on putting out my book within the next couple months. And so you can definitely keep up with me there at Dominique Chantel on Instagram. I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. And I'm just blessed, and I appreciate you, Sean, for having me on here. And I always
Yeah.
appreciate, your everything that you do and all that you're doing. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Absolutely. And we hope to get new music from you in the near future
Yes.
as well. We hope
Yes.
let us know when that album is coming or that EP is coming. Let us
I
know.
will. I will. I will. I definitely will. I'm starting to work on some stuff actually during the summer. So I'm gonna get the book out first, and then we're gonna
Right.
start to work on some music.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And by the
I
way, I came across a piece of content on YouTube courtesy of Amanda Seals, and she mentioned something about COVID companion. I'm looking
mm.
for a COVID companion. I'm just gonna throw it out there because we are
Okay.
still in the
Oh.